how we doing? I am your host, Robert T. Gardner Jr., also known as Dr. Rob. Welcome to Station BOB, and let me tell you a little about thee. I am a kid from a Harlem hood who turned out good. I got educated like I should. Now I know how to help you grow to become the best of your being in life, love, and work. With that said, I am here to provide you with some clarity associated with the perplexity of the challenges in your life, love, and work. So, without further ado, let's get down on it. Enjoy the show. Yes, how we doing? Welcome once again, my friend, to Station BOB, where you listen to learn how to become the best of your being in life, love, and work. And as always, I am excited, enthusiastic, and filled with joy. And yet again today, I bring you another top topic. Today's topic is, actually, I don't even have a name, a topic for this podcast, because I think it's going to be that powerful. You know how I often talk about how I grew up and how my mother died and my Aunt Sally took care of me, and my sister and my cousin brother, her son, and raised us. And so today is a more than special podcast. Today I have Aunt Sally, a.k.a. Mont. Now, you guys got to know, Aunt Sally knew me before I was Dr. Rob, so she may call me a few things other than Dr. Rob. So pray for me and let me get through this this discussion with Aunt Sally, because today what we're going to talk about, a pivotal time in my life. And then just a tremendous sacrifice that she made as my mother's youngest sister to move from where she lived to come and move to where my sister and I lived to raise us. This was all as a result of, the sudden death of my mother, who was her sister. And without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce Mont, my Mont. Say hello, Mont.
Hello, my sweet nephew. I am so grateful to be here with you today, and it's an exciting time for me. Also, it's also a time in my life that I have revisited many times within myself and with you. But now it's become a time when we're going to share it with many people, and it's going to help many people who have have gone through or will be going through an encounter of such a type as this. God bless you.
Yeah, I like the way you put that, because that's exactly what it is. It was a time, because I think what this podcast is really about is about, family and what family can do for you to help, keep your life in order or make it better. I don't even know the word to put on it, but I think the experience that we had during that time is all of these things and more. So let me just go right to it. So this is just, real life situation for me. I'm 9 years old, 1966, November 3rd, November 12th. So I'm just going to, give a little brief thing about what happened as far as I know it. And then if you could, Aunt Sally, share, what was happening on your end as the adult, as the sister, and what was happening with the family that led to you deciding to, come move in with us. So let me just say, it was November 12th, 1966. I remember my mother sent me to a program on Saturday. It was a Saturday morning, and I went to that program, sort of just a Saturday kind of recreation thing. I think that was her version of the cadets, because back then Joey was in the cadets, so I think she was trying to do something for me. She should have just sent me uptown to the cadets, but nevertheless. So I go to this program, and I come home, and it's nighttime now, and I'm calling her at the window, Ma, Ma, and Diane comes to the window, come upstairs, Ma is sick. So, me and Diane, we used to fight a lot, so I didn't believe her, And I just kept calling my mother. I was going, Ma! And Diane, she came to the window. She said, I said, come upstairs, Ma is sick. So it was like, I said to myself, wow, this must be legit. Because I used to call my mother out the window for money, because eventually you started throwing me money out the window, once we got together. So anyway, I come upstairs and my mother's in a coma, and just to make a long story short, she was rushed to the emergency room and she died the next day. Boom. So now my mother's dead. Your older sister is dead. Not oldest, but the next one up, older. And so what was happening then with the family?
Well, at that time, that was very, very, very serious time for the whole entire family, because my sister Vera, was always very closely entangled with all of us, with our mom and with our older sister Inez. So for something like this to have occurred, it was extremely difficult for all of us. But somehow or another, we managed as a family to pull together as to how to handle something like this. And it's vague for me because I'm not sure whether it was the time with Diane or my mom, which you guys called dearest, and I called her mommy. We got in touch with my mother, and as a matter of fact, I was not at home. Come to think about it, I was in Long Island, Queens,
so wait, but hold on right there. Now, what are you talking about when you're saying this? Like, what are you speaking to?
I'm trying to recall how I was informed about this, and I was in Long Island with a friend, and I got a phone call about the death of your mom, and she was in the hospital, and I came home immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And how we handled the situation is vague for me, but that was how I received the information. I was in Long Island and visiting a friend, a male friend, and I can't think of his name right now because my mind is vague about it. But that's how I was informed about your mom.
Okay, so all right. So now I just wanted to fast forward to, so we have this, the service, the funeral service, the whole thing. But now, here are these two children, Bobby and Diane, without their mother. And so what is the family thinking, doing? Is anybody saying, what are we going to do with these kids? Like, what's happening? What are the adults saying?
Okay,
Best you can recall.
Of course, my mom took control at that time. She was very astute, and we had arrangements of the funeral parlor right around the corner from we were raised, which was 154th Street between Amsterdam and St. Nicholas Avenue in Manhattan. And it was Jenkins Funeral Parlor, which is now in New Jersey, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, it is. His son took that service over, Mr. Jenkins. And he knew our family, so he was able to give her the look that she was a very beautiful woman. And it happened that I was told your dad was walking up and down between 155th Street and 153rd Street, back and forth, but he would not come into the funeral parlor.
Really?
And yes, he was very disturbed by that, but he was unable to come in. So that's something that I remember being told about him. And we managed to get through the funeral parlor and the burial, which she's buried with your sister, by the way. And so we gathered in your mom's apartment where you and Diane lived, and it was Mommy, Aunt Inez, Uncle Rick, you, Diane, and Joey, your cousin brother, if you will. And that you children were not in the room. It was Mommy, Aunt Inez, Uncle Rick. Now, I do not recall your father coming into this discussion at all. I don't remember him coming to the home at all. But if he did, it's not in my memory. And we were talking about the fact that here are two children without their mother who was raising them. Your dad your dad lived in that apartment. He used to go to work from there. And we were talking, and Uncle Rick said, well, I will take Bobby. I'll raise him. And I spoke up and said, no.
Wait, hold on. So, wait, I just want to say, so it was me and Diane, brother and sister. So Uncle Rick, he only wanted to take me?
Exactly.
Okay, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
He said that he wanted to take you, and I immediately interrupted, and maybe I was out of turn or out of the authoritative position, but I did. And I said, well, my sister raised both of her children together. And if you're going to take one, you have to take both. If you're not going to take both, you're not going to take neither.
Wow. You said that?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say to that?
His response was well, Leslie, let's get out of here.
What? So he was willing to walk. Wait, you mean they lived in Philadelphia? So when he said, let's get out of here, he was talking about going back home?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So at this point, the funeral service and everything had taken place. Okay, so it would have been an appropriate time.
Right. Buried in Ferncliff with her daughter.
Right. I get it. Malcolm X is buried up there. Mom's Mabley, Ed
Betty
Sullivan,
and Dearest, and
Julie Garland, Aunt Madge. Yeah, yeah. Everybody's up there.
It's a very famous. Aunt Tina's mother, Aunt Tina, is up there.
Everybody buried up there except for you and I. So let's keep talking because right now we don't want to be up there with them. We love and miss them, yes we do. But you and I are still here.
By the way, just in case you didn't know it, there is an open grave with Dearest.
I ain't trying to get in that. That would be, but I know you're not trying to come back here. You want to be laid to rest out there, right?
Yes, I will be. I will be buried in a funeral in a graveyard called Gum Spring, Texas.
All right, now New York lady getting married in Gum Spring, Texas. Anybody know where Gum Spring, Texas is? If you do, let me know. Do you know where Gum Spring, Texas is? Oh, let me just check with the audience to see if they know where Gum Spring, Texas is. Yeah, look at that. Crickets on Gum Spring, Texas. Sorry, Mark. We are not really familiar with where Gum Spring, Texas is, but if that's where you're gonna be, I'll be there if I leave here after you. If not, you may have to come see me in Ferncliff. So why are we talking about being buried when we're supposed to be talking about, what we're talking about? So Uncle Rick is going to walk out.
it kind of ties in with the fact that here we had my oldest sister's sister, my oldest sister's husband, my sister's brother-in-law, your grandmother, dearest, and me. And the reason we're talking about graveyards is because that's where your mother was at that time we were talking. And we needed to come to an agreement as to how her children would be raised. And so
Wow.
that's how it ended up. And so it turned out that Uncle Rick wanted to raise you, but not your sister. Your sister was older, of course, and being sort of a female who was pretty much ready to go and have her own decisions and walk in life, he decided that you being younger, you would be easier to raise, I assume.
Wow. Yeah.
However,
Yeah. That happens
I
with teenagers. Even in adoption, families tend to not want to adopt the teenagers because of that very same reason. But go ahead. I'm
mhm,
sorry.
no problem, not at all. And so, of course, as I said, and I will repeat, I reminded him that your mom, my sister Vera, raised the two of her children together, and that was the way that the family would prefer for them to be raised. And with that, he was not in agreement, and he was quite annoyed that that was not going to be the procedure that we decided on, because my mom, your dearest, did not say, "Oh no, let him go with Aunt Inez and Uncle Rick." My mother didn't say that. My mother was very quiet
So, what do you
when
think?
I spoke.
Okay. So, do you think she was quiet because she agreed with you, or she was just quiet because of what?
She was quiet because she agreed with me. My assumption is that she was quiet because she agreed with me, because that's what I assume. I cannot say, of course, but I assume that she did uh, have respect for the fact that your Uncle Rick was taking good care of your Aunt Inez, and
Uh
they
huh.
had a home. So I don't think that she felt that it would be anything other than a good place for you to go. But I also know that she loved the fact that your sister and you should be together. That's my assumption.
Right.
Of
Right.
course, there it is in here now. So anyway, he was a little, uh, what can I say, annoyed or upset or
You say whatever
not
you
in
think.
agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you there. But go ahead. I want you to say what the truth, what your feelings were, what your thoughts were. That's what this is about. Like what was going on at that time as it relates
I
to.
was feeling, I was feeling, uh, not, I didn't feel good about his thoughts, and that's why I spoke up. I felt that
Wow.
he should appreciate the way that my sister, your mom, had raised her children, and that he should respect that. And when he didn't, it brought up my aggressive approach toward the situation, which was, well, if you can't take both of them, don't take either one of them. And that was pretty bold of me. And I didn't even realize what I was saying at the time. I guess my feelings got involved there.
Right, but let me ask you this: why would you say that's pretty bold? Was pretty bold of you? Is it because of the time? Is it because that he was a man? I mean, because to me that sounds like a normal. Because I'm understanding what you're saying, but I'm also saying that that was supposed to be a heated discussion. When you're talking about taking somebody kids, everybody doesn't want the kids, or they might want one, like Uncle Rick did. So why are you thinking that that was aggressive on your part? Because he was a man, or like what was happening there? That because I think you did the right thing. But go ahead.
Well, I think it was a combination of me at that time being a single mother myself, and that's the bold part. and also to speak to him with such, if, for lack of a better word, that word bold again or aggressive approach to what I said and what that meant, what I said, what it meant, because it meant no, you don't have that position. I was taking him down from his position as a
Ooh-wee.
man.
Yeah, yeah. And Uncle Rick was a pretty tough character, boy. Remember? Nez, Rochelle. Uncle Rick was no joke. But, I'm so glad that you did that, because I mean, I don't know how it would have turned out, but I know that when I look back now, no disrespect to Philadelphia, but I am glad to have grown up in Harlem. You know what I mean? It's just something about that. And so I'm just glad that you were aggressive and assertive. So okay, so what happened now? He left. Did he stay? What
So he
happened?
said, come on, Nez, let's get out of here."
Did he leave?
I almost picture.
Wait,
I
did he
can
actually
see
leave?
that. I can see that whole room. I can see him saying that. I could see him and her getting up to leave. I could actually see it as I close my eyes.
Wow. So hold on.
So,
I want to ask you another question, but I have to let a promo in. So let me do that and we'll pick it up on the other side.
Have you read any good books lately? Your host, Robert T. Gardner Jr., also known as Dr. Rob, is the author of 3 great books. In his first book, The Choices We Make, Robert takes a look at relationships to help readers learn how to have a good relationship with themselves before they can have good relationships with others. In his second book, Access Denied, Robert brings an eye-opening perspective about what happens to children and fathers when their relationships with the mothers of their children end on bad terms. Robert explores what he calls child porn, when a parent, usually the mother, uses a child as a weapon to hurt the other parent. Robert provides a let-go lab in his book to help parents find positive ways to resolve their issues in the best interest of their children. Light Up Your Life is Robert's latest book. Robert writes about the fact that we are all born with a special God-given talent. Even though we are all born with a special talent, most of us miss our true calling. In this book, you will learn how to find your special talent and light up your life so that you can become the person you were born to be and live a more fulfilled, purpose-driven life. Books are available at barnesandnobles.com, amazon.com, and Robert's website, relationshipreadiness.org. Thank you, and back to the show.
All right, welcome back. So before we let the promo in, I was trying to ask you the question, did Uncle Rick leave? Did they actually leave?
my vivid picture, as I was saying, I can see the room, the bedroom.
Uh-huh.
I can see Dearest sitting on, if you will, if you face the room, the right side of the bed, me on the right side of the bed, Aunt Inez and Uncle Rick on the left side of the bed, if you face with the head of the bed facing the window.
You really taking us right into the room there. Did he leave is the question.
And talking, we were sitting on the bed and talking, and he said, "Come on, Nezzy, let's get out of here." And they got up and they left.
Wow. So now what? Okay, so
Now,
minus 2 potential parents out the door. Who's left?
Dearest, myself, and you kids.
No, I'm talking about in terms of options for taking, responsibility for me and Diane.
I'm just trying to think now. And so, because I'm going to skip a little bit to something, because I worked for an international insurance company, which was down in old New York, where there were still cobblestone streets, by the way.
Uh-huh.
I had convinced your mother to take out life insurance. She was, I don't need life insurance, blah, blah, blah. But she did. Praise God that she did.
Uh-huh.
But her insurance was able to take care of her burial and you and your sister. And so, okay, I decided, being a single mother, that I would come with my son, Joey, to come and live with you guys. Because I said to dear, I said, what are we going to do now? I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in the Bronx, and there's Vera's apartment. And so I said, Mommy, what do you think if I come to live there? And she said, well, if it's easier for you, and we can see how that will work out. So somehow or another, God allowed us to come to live there through the policy and procedures of the New York City Housing Authority.
Oh, you had to go through that. Let me just
I
ask you
had
this.
to go through.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to ask you a question. Do you know, or can you remember if my father ever tried to, stake a claim?
I do not recall that ever.
Okay. No, I was just curious. It
I
doesn't matter.
really don't. I think, because even when you first asked me about doing this, I said, let me see, because you mentioned that your dad came and said something about taking you. And I don't, if it did, it's completely blank in my mind. Iris is not here to confirm that.
Uh-huh.
But I don't remember that.
Okay, so what I remember, and I'm just going to share, and you tell me what you recall, if anything, about this. And I don't know if I remember it more so than it was told to me. I'm not sure, because as you said earlier, there were no children in on the discussion of how you guys were going to divvy up the children there. But what I believe, because I do remember my father coming to the house. I do remember that, but I wasn't a part of the discussion. And I also remember him leaving. But the middle part, which would have been the discussion, that part I wasn't a part of. But from what I can recall about that time was that he too, came to the house and was given the option about taking the kids, but he wanted to take me and not Diane. Does that ring a bell in your mind?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, but like I said, I remember that he came to the house, and I also remember that he left. You know what I mean? And that's neither here nor there. That's just what I can recall from that time, some 55 years ago.
Well, I would say that's more than here nor there, because that's a very important point to have. That's a very important time to have occurred in your life. Because if he did say that, why would we not have Dearest and me, or Dearest or me, not have allowed that to have happened, being your dad?
No, so what I'm saying is, I said that he did not want Diane either, so that would have been why you would have done that, I believe.
No, that's exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if Robert Thad Garnier Sr. had said he wanted to take his son, Dearest and I'm sure, would have said okay, because that's his dad.
Wow. Yeah, it makes sense theoretically, but thank God that didn't happen. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
But anyway, and know how. So here we are now, where you two were going to be raised, where, your mom was raising you. And we went through the policy and procedures of NYCHA, and things worked out. And I went to the surrogates court. And because, praise God, your mom did listen to her little sister, and she did have life insurance. And we went to, my mom, dearest, and I went down to surrogate's court, and we opened accounts where the money that was coming from the insurance policy will go into an account for you and into an account for your sister.
I
And
remember. I remember those times. I remember that.
hmm and so then, since I came there with my son, your cousin Joey Joseph James Washington III, to be exact, we he was enrolled into public school 121 across the street from there.
Right, right.
However, you were attending a public school down in the
PS 158. I went to
yes,
school
down in the oh God, my mind.
In the
Yorkville.
Yorkville.
It was called the Yorkville vicinity.
Right.
Because I had a friend who, by the way, a very dear friend, Dr. Sylvia Frank, who lived in that area. But she and I were not friends at that time.
Yeah, that's way before Sylvia Frank.
So anyway, it turns out that when there was so we decided that we would live there, the four of us. And Diane, your sister, got herself involved into drugs, and somehow she got arrested and was incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was what we had to deal with also. But God blessed us. We managed to get through that, and there we were living together in 210 East 102nd Street, apartment 5D. And you had to learn, and Joey and I, we had to learn what it meant to live together as a family. And I took on the responsibility of a mother of two boys.
Mm-hmm.
And I was grateful that God had allowed me to do this, and I continued working at Mount Sinai, and we had our times together. We would, and I enrolled you into New York City Mission Cadet Society.
Yeah, I finally made it to the cadets. But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this though. I wanted to ask you. So, what was it? You know, was it like a big deal for you? Did you go through any? Kind of like, damn, I got to give up my place to go raise these kids. Like, what was happening with you? You know, what were your thoughts about having to make such a? It
was an amazingly easy transition, because it just so happened that my sister Vera and I, we always were together anyway. I would come to visit her and spend time with her, and she and I really were what you would call best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I lived in the Bronx.
So it wasn't a big deal for you?
So that's what I was getting ready to say. This transition for me was one that there were some mixed emotions, because I had to take my son out of the school that he was attending, and I had to rearrange what to do with the little bit of furniture that I did have. I had to just readjust my life, and so there was some emotional concerns as to, is this right? What am I doing? How did I get involved in this? But yet with all of this, God was in control, because little did I know this was a plan that He had for my life.
So when you say that this was a plan for your life, like, what do you mean that this turned out to be a plan for your life?
This was an unbeknown plan for my life, and I'm speaking now. I'm sorry I had to bring the Spirit into this, but it's something that was happening to me that little did I know was just it was okay for it to be happening because it worked out so smoothly.
Wow.
And so because it worked out so smoothly, I just transitioned down there from the Bronx into what we thought was sort of can I say a little tiny bit of suburbia in its own way
But in the
down in
projects?
the East Coast, in the Bronx.
Oh,
Because at that
oh,
time,
oh, yeah, 76 East Tremont Avenue. It was nice up there.
it was very nice. And at that time, it was a combination of diversified community. And so there I was transitioning down into a community that was very different from where we had been living. It was okay, as I was saying, because I always did come there to visit your mom. So we knew how to get there and get up on the trains and
Uh-huh.
buses and learn how to travel there, which we did. It was emotionally different for me and for your cousin. We had to just rearrange our life and
Right.
we left our environment to
Uh-huh.
come to your environment.
And that was
And
huge.
it was
That was
very
huge.
hard because I did not, it was very hard because I knew this was a very, very sensitive, emotional time for you. And your sister was incarcerated. And here comes these two people coming into your home where you had lived. You were a little boy, 9 years old.
Well, how was I? How was I, do you recall, like, how, was I walking around in,
You
like, an emotional stupor because I lost my mother? Like, did I seem to
you
be in a
never
good
allowed
place?
yourself.
I never what?
You never you never allowed yourself to expose your inner feelings.
Wow, it's interesting that you would say that because, back then I do recall being, I was a quiet guy, but I was quiet and I was shy. But I remember being at my mother's funeral just crying profusely. And I remember being removed from the funeral, and Aunt Madge sat with me in the limousine because, I was disturbing the service. Once they start playing that music, wah, 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 I remember, I remember just that music tore me up, and I remember crying. And I guess, you know, that may have been, because I had the, a good cry, if you will, I'm not talking about it, it was good, but to release myself, in
Yes.
that, in that way. And then somehow, I mean, I really don't know how I got over, it's not, I mean, you never get over the loss of a parent, especially at 9 years old. But I'm saying now, in the work I do as a social worker, children lose a parent, a grandparent. Heck, they lose their turtle and they're devastated. And so I don't know, like, what happened because, like you said, I didn't, release it. But I think I did because I wasn't troubled by it. Usually when people, hold things in, they act out. And I don't, you would know better than me if
No,
I was acting out.
This, 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 this is why I said you suppressed, for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was that you were feeling. You would answer if asked something. You allowed. I think that's the right word. You allowed us to invade your home, and when we invaded it, it came from us as a support coming to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We came to help you get over this
Yes. Yes.
big, huge loss. And there were things that happened in your life that you did not talk about until later on when you felt strong enough to say it. For example, when we would sit down to eat, I would make sure that if Joey got 5 peas on his plate, you got 5 peas on your plate. If Joey got a chicken wing, you got a chicken wing. Until one day, I could feel you looking at me and my back was turned. This is what I felt.
Uh-huh.
And I said aloud, whatever goes on you two guys' plate is what goes on your plate. I never again will measure. And I started serving you with glee because I released that tension that I was feeling, I would be sure that nothing was done without equal equality.
Oh, you was from the Martin Luther King
And Joey's dad made sure that whatever he did for Joey, he did for Bobby.
And that he did. I could never, Uncle Joe, he was, listen, I'm lost for words because that he did. There's no question, no
and
question about that.
So later on you said, oh, I never will forget. You let Joey sit in my chair, and it was my chair. And I said, Bobby, I never knew that was your chair. Why you didn't say something? And you said, and I was a good swimmer, and everybody said Joey was the best swimmer.
Oh my God! What you gonna do with these damn kids? Even Dr. Rob behaved like that. That's crazy.
And so you guys were these little guys out in front where you had a beautiful front lawn to play on, playing football, and Bobby would get himself all dirtied up, even though he wasn't the real rough football player, and he'd come upstairs so his clothes would look like he was playing the best football.
That's funny. That's funny because you know why that's funny? Hold up. You know why that's funny? Because it sounds true.
And then Bobby, Dr. Rob, would cry and say, well, I just took a bath yesterday. Why are you making me take another bath?
That is crazy. All right, we supposed to be talking about moving in together. You talking about me not wanting to take a bath. Okay, you can go there. It's all good. Wow, that's amazing because you're telling me things about myself that I did not know. And that's what I really wanted to happen. Like, how was I, in response to, the loss of my mother and, how that was not only for me, but how was it for you? So I want to thank you for doing that and, just sharing those, those things that we should talk about after the podcast. I want to thank you for sharing those things. But I also just want to really say thank you so much for that. That's a sacrifice that you made to come and take care of me and Diane. I mean, it was, I have the words for it, but the words wouldn't really measure up to the feeling I have for it. And I just really want to say, thank you so much because as a child, you don't know what's going to happen if you have to move out of the neighborhood. Had I had to go to Philly or even with my father, God forbid, I'm glad my father was in my life, but I would have been a different person, I think, if I would have been raised by him. And so the fact that you moved in, there with me and, Diane, and we could have our same friends and be in our same house because we had already dealt with enough in terms of the sudden death of our mother. I cannot thank you enough for, not only the sacrifice of you moving, but then the life, that you gave me, and we had our ups and downs, that's all a part of family life and all of that. But I'm just saying the life with the cadets and Camp Chaperoon and the trips that we took and, traveling with the Warriors to those, musical competitions and just everything. Thank you is not enough, but that's all that we know to say. And I just want to say thank you for that sacrifice, for everything you did. And I, I probably didn't show any emotions. Like you said, I probably held it in. But my life was really so good after the death of my mother. I don't, I think that's what happened. I think I just got caught up that things never slowed down. I mean, in the projects, you go outside to play, it's 500 people out there. You don't have time to be sad. People bothering you, people chasing you, people tagging you, say, hey, you want to race? You want to do this? You want to play kick the can? You don't want to do this? Hey, they're doing this over there. Oh, they go to Ice Cream Man, Mr. Softy. Oh, the fire hydrant was on. It was just too much for me to be sad. You know what I'm saying? It was amazing. I mean, you gave me just an amazing life. Huh?
If I may interrupt for just a moment.
Yeah, yes. You're on the show, too. You can go ahead. You can get 2 or 3 words in. So.
One of the things that happened was this was a new set of buildings. And the people in this set of buildings, this 210, 220, they became a family because everyone there was new. So everyone there, like the Johnsons, like Miss Vivian, like Miss Clee, and all these people became close friends.
Yeah.
And so Miss Clee would say, if you don't behave yourself, I'm going to tell your mother. And she would tell me or tell your mother, and you would get a spanking from the whole project.
Yeah,
so
Miss Clee
Johnson
was no joke.
Had 100 children, and all of those children were upstairs in her apartment, downstairs in our apartment. There was Miss Katie with Funky, and it was just a 15-story buildings with all these families that came together. And so it was this love because everybody knew your mother, everybody knew you and your sister, and there was this love that was exudingly coming towards you and helping you through this devastation. And like we said, the nighttime housings at that time were a great place to live. There was this beautiful playground. The grounds were kept clean. It was a whole different environment. And yet, like you said, you and your sister were able to stay where your mom had raised you. You were born there.
Yeah,
your mom
much,
left from there going to have you, that same apartment. And so for you to be raised as an infant there, it was a big, beautiful, can I say, gift, spiritual gift that you were able to stay there, and your mom was gone. But the person who came there was one that you knew. It was no stranger because we had always been in your life.
Yeah, it was you. Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't like because even, I'm just saying hypothetically, I don't know, but if it was Aunt Inez and Uncle Rick, although I knew them, they were family, but it was different that it was you because, of the relationship you had with my mother and the time that we all spent together. I mean, I remember many a nights, coming to stay at Tremont Avenue in the Bronx. And then even when you guys were at Dearest house. And then when you had your first apartment across the street from Dearest house. Remember that? Over there with your friend Sandy. What was her name? Sandy or Sandra?
Oh, no, Nancy.
Oh, no,
I had a friend named Nancy, and I had Marlene and Martina, and I had
I thought it was Sandy.
Rita.
I thought her name was light-skinned woman. She had a mole on the side of her face.
That was Nancy.
Oh, Nancy. See what happens to your little kid? You even get the names wrong. I thought her name was Sandy for 50 years, and it turns out her name is Nancy. Well,
no, all the people on that block were people who owned their own brownstone, beautiful buildings. Every single building on that block were owned by African Americans. Every single one of them, except when we got down to the corner of St. Nicholas Avenue, which the Supers were African Americans that took care of those two buildings. One was a red brick building and one was a white brick building.
Yeah, I remember. I remember. Well, Aunt Sally, Maude, I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna wrap the show up. But just before I do, I just wanted to say thank you so much again. I think thank you is just not the word that would match my feelings and gratitude and appreciation for what you did, because I'm still even friends with some of the main core friends that I had with growing up, at 210 East 102nd Street. But I just wanted to know, are you okay with the way I turned out, or is there anything you want to say before we wrap up the podcast?
No, it's quite amazing how, though you were raised by an aunt and not your dad, who was in your life after a while, and not by your mom, but you managed to get through. You got a job as a young person. We sent you to college and you said, oh no, I'm coming back home. I don't want to be that far away. And you came home, but you went to Fordham, you went to NYU, and you had your spiel, oh my God, with diabetes, but yet you came through it all. You came through it all. We were grateful for Dr. Ginsburg, who helped to save your life. Grateful to Uncle Connie running up and down the hallways with your blood.
Yeah,
and here you
talk
are
about
today,
that next. Yes.
We have a part 2 we have to do to continue this. And here you are now in the Yeshiva University, ready to receive one day your PhD. So I would be bold enough once again to say that with the lifestyle that was set before you as an example of how important education is, because I too have my master's degree in social work, has influenced your desire to learn, to the learning environment. And I'm just grateful that God has allowed us to see this far, that our life has turned out to be one to be magnified, because we have done very well with any odds that came against us.
Wow. Well, with that said, I guess we can call it a wrap. And I just want to thank you so much again. And thank you also for coming on to the podcast to share that time, with me in the audience, because what I really intended to do here was just have this story told in a way to help people understand that no matter what happens to you, that you can find a way through love and support to continue to live a good life, or to find your way to a good life. And really, my mother died when I was 9. And the point here is that, again, it doesn't matter how you start. What matters is how you finish. And so the early part of my life, as tough as it was with my sister passing away, my mother, then I get diagnosed with diabetes, still in all, I could say that it has been a great, great life. And most of all, I have to thank you for making that beginning part of my life not as bad as it first started out. And with that said, remember, love is an action, not a word, and it's not supposed to hurt. Until we meet again, I'll talk to you later. Don't hang up yet. As we wrap up this show, I hope this topic helped you to grow. And now you know a little bit more than you knew before. If you have any questions about this topic, please email me at changeagentrtg@gmail.com. See my website, relationshipreadiness.org, to learn more about my counseling, consulting, and educational programs related to life, love, and work. Finally, in the words of the late, great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody he is traveling wrong, then my living will not be in vain. Until we meet again, do the right thing when nobody is looking. Peace, beloved.